They say sleep is the foundation of physical and mental health. Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining me on another episode of They Say It Takes a Village. Backed by popular demand, today I'm joined with Dubai-based senior sleep consultant, miracle worker, and the founder of Nurture to Sleep, the wonderful Julie Mallon. And we're here to talk about exactly how sleep and mental health are tied together. So without further ado, Julie.
Thank you. And I'm really, really honored to be here. Truly.
Thank you so much. We're recording this at night between your schedule, mine, but we managed to make it happen. It's quite peaceful in the evening, isn't it?
It is.
Yeah.
It is peaceful.
I'm so happy that you're here.
And
thank you so much.
all my babies are sleeping, so I'm very happy.
Exactly. There's nobody in a crisis mode at the moment.
No.
I'm so grateful for we've done an episode together. I think it's episode number 2. And we touched on sleep and what that means for children. But I feel this one is a bit more in detail. So sleep and mental health. And I think it's actually perfectly fitting because we're recording this now in May, and this whole month is a sort of mental health awareness.
Yeah.
So, it's really I find very, very important to link the two together. I always find that people think sleep is almost like a luxury as opposed to something that is a necessary part of life.
Yeah.
So I'm so grateful that you're here to talk about this and to sort of put emphasis on how important sleep is.
And I think that's where we really have to start making a difference, because we're still doing too much talking about sleep.
Yeah.
Yes, we have built our awareness around sleep. That's very evident. But we now need to be acting on, much more proactive around our children's health and seeing the link. I mean, mental health and sleep are inextricably linked. There's no question of it. And certainly the data is really providing that link for us. It's very, very clear. And as you say, this month is very much about Children's Mental Health Month. That's what we're celebrating. And that's why, next week when I'll be traveling to Ireland to speak at this summit, which is an inaugural summit of its kind on mental health in children. So I think it's really important that we start the conversation, but take it further.
I totally agree. So I think a lot of the times, we just sort of to jump right in. Why is it so important for children's sort of mental health? I find a lot of the, I feel kids have a notorious reputation for feeling that, I guess, parents or the entire society feels like, they don't need that much sleep. They've got so much energy. They kind of sleep haphazardly. And that's just a part of being a child. But to have this sort of restorative sleep, I would think, why is that so important for their mental health?
Now, we all talk about the negativity of technology and sleep. And, we do talk about that. But we also need to talk about the advantages that have happened with technology, because now that's really made it evident around the science of sleep. And it's showing us the activity of the brain and also the impact of the brain when we are sleep deprived. And that is also true of children. So if we're looking at, we still don't know, it's such a new science, we still don't know enough as to why we sleep. But equally, we know that there are lots of negative impacts when we don't sleep. And that's really what we're looking at. We also know with our children, for example, when our children sleep, the brain develops. Emotional regulation is allowed to develop. Memory consolidation is very much part of the sleep work. So we know that there are huge benefits when our children are rested. They are well rested and they can cope with the next day. So it is such a critical factor for our children's development.
And so as a parent, let's say your child hasn't had enough sleep. What would be signs or sort of giveaways that they potentially are lacking sleep?
So age is very relevant as to the signs that are showing you that our children are sleep deprived. But certainly looking at the behaviour of our children, very often, just like us, we become very cranky and very irritable when we haven't slept. But the thing with our children is our children don't have the ability, most, younger children, for example, they don't have the ability to communicate this to us, and it's manifested in their behaviour. Things like meltdowns with our their emotional regulation is so much poorer because they just don't have the ability to get over whatever it is that they are trying to understand. So moodiness is a really big part. Poor concentration, their cognitive function is impaired. So there's a number of factors that we can see where our children are sleep deprived. You know, if you're having to wake them up in the morning, that's also another indicator that our children are not getting enough sleep. So there's lots of behaviours that we can look at that will really enable us to know whether our children are well rested or not.
And so I think let's maybe backtrack, because I'm pretty sure parents are probably thinking, okay, fine, I've got a 2-year-old or I have a 5-year-old. How much sleep should they be getting? Is there a rule of thumb from like the ages of 0 to 2 and 2 and above? Or, I mean, I'm assuming, you know, obviously as adults, we have a completely different sleep requirement, as do kids. But do you have like an international ballpark?
There is. If we're looking at the National Sleep Foundation's recommendations for children, but that's the thing, they are recommendations. So again, using them as your guide. And if we're looking at children from, say, approximately 4 months to a year, theirs roughly is 14 hours sleep, approximately, including naps in total.
In a period of 24 hours.
In a period of 24 hours, including their naps. So we know from a child who is 3 to 6, their sleep requirement that they're looking at is 10 to 13 hours, approximately, including any naps that they're going to be having. And then if we're looking at children who are 6 to 12 years, that's 9 to 12 hours sleep in total they would be looking at. So 9 to 12 hours. And then your 13 and teenage years, again, is something like 8 to 10 hours. Now, that's really confusing if we're looking at teenagers. And they're saying 8 to 10 hours because we know the latest research is saying 9.5 hours is what a teenager requires for good sleep. So there's so much conflicting advice out there.
Just out of curiosity, what about adults?
So again, generally we're either 7-hour sleepers or 9-hour sleepers. So this myth of 8 hours is incorrect because we know that the adult sleep cycle is 90 minutes. So therefore it can't, if you're waking up within 8 hours, you're waking up in the middle of a sleep cycle.
That's right.
So you're either a 7 or 9-hour sleeper. So for example, I know that I'm a 7-hour sleeper and my husband is a 9-hour sleeper. I know that my eldest daughter is a 9-hour sleeper and my second daughter, like me, is a 7-hour. Now I know my third daughter, she would like to be a 7-hour, but actually I think she's a 9. Yeah. So it's 7 or 9 hours, and finding out what your amount is really that you don't need an alarm to wake you. You wake up before and you wake up rested. You know, when you go to sleep at night, you fall asleep within approximately 20 minutes, approximately. And now the other thing here is, on average, we wake up 33 times a night.
That's a
as an
lot.
adult. But because we know how to go to sleep, we're not aware of it. So if you think of our children, who a lot of children today don't know how to fall asleep, so the propensity for them to wake up is even greater because, you know, from 12 weeks until the age of 3, approximately, their sleep cycle is 1 hour. And so that's every hour that our children can wake up, depending on how they fell asleep at the very beginning of the night.
Absolutely.
So we do have to be mindful about how our children are falling asleep and how they're waking up in the morning. Yeah.
I mean, I feel like we can potentially talk about that specifically on a completely different episode. But to just sort of more focus on the impact of mental health. What, you know, sort of common sort of sleep disorders, I guess, is it sleep disorders or general disorders in children help, you know, or sort of impact on mental health?
So there's a range of sleep disorders that impact on their mental health. And if we're looking at it, again, we know that when our children do have poor sleep, they are much more prone to things like anxiety. You see that very clearly linked now, poor sleep and anxiety.
I mean, I even see that as an adult.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and they haven't got the tools yet.
Yeah.
So anxiety is definitely associated with poor sleep disorders, and poor mental health. Attention deficit disorder, poor mental health. ADHD, in other types of mental health disorders are all linked to poor sleep. And again, the science is really showing us that these are, inextricably linked. There was a very large study that was carried out in the UK in Stratford-upon-Avon, which is Shakespeare country.
Yeah.
And there was over 11,000 children that were part of this study. Now, this study was released in the Pediatric Journal. So this is a really serious paper. And within the study, it was carried out by a Dr. Carol Bonnock. Now, this study was conducted from children of 6 months right through until they were 57 months, so almost 6 years.
Okay.
So basically, we have a large group of children over a long period of time. So again, letting us know how robust this study is. And what she concluded from this study was the children who were not sleeping by the age of 5, 40% of these children were much more likely, there was an increase in the likelihood of them having mental health disorders.
Wow.
And learning difficulties such as attention deficit disorder, such as, sensory processing. All of these were very clear in this study. Now, she also went on to look at other studies to support this extensive study. And she was looking to America. And one of the studies in America was showing how at present there are 3 million children who are undiagnosed with mental health issues. And it's primarily to sleep, poor sleep.
That's unbelievable. That's a really large
It's a very large number.
statistic.
Yeah. Huge.
I mean, I'm just trying to understand why do you think that is so big?
I mean, it's multifaceted.
Yeah.
One of the reasons, and this will be very evident from your podcast last week, nose breathing,
Mouth,
cranial, facial, our faces are changing. Children are mouth breathing, and this is resulting in poor oxygen to the brain. Unlike adults, for example, who are diagnosed with sleep apnea, they have 5 events, so 5 breathing episodes within 1 hour. And then that is clinically significant. With our children, they only need 1 breath issue within 1 hour, and that is clinically significant. So, there's a number of children who now are snoring, who are mouth breathers, and you've only got to look at, if you were to go to a school and children, a class of 10-year-olds, and you were to ask them who was having orthodontics, there's a lot of children now, a lot than ever before.
Absolutely.
There was a wonderful author in the 1930s, Westover Price. He wrote a book, Nutrition and Overall Degeneration. And he wrote a book, and he was saying that certain groups, certain civilizations, such as the Aborigines, such as Eskimos, and the Maori, for example, they had 1 generation of eating the Western diet, and they became mouth breathers. 1 generation.
Do you think that's because of what
we're eating? We're not chewing.
So things like bring back things like baby-led weaning, whole foods at a very young age. Yeah. It's so amazing how it's all linked together.
All of it, everything, all of it is connected.
I feel like you guys should all come together and form some sort of society.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it is all related, whether it be mental health, whether it be the physical, because of course, when we're not sleeping, when our children are not sleeping, their physical health is being impacted. We talk about the 3 pillars of good health, and those 3 pillars are nutrition, exercise, and sleep. But actually, of all 3, sleep has to be the most important, because without good sleep, we're going to have injury, and then exercise doesn't take place. Without good sleep, we cannot absorb the nutrition. So sleep is the only thing that is more important than sleep, oxygen. That is the only
sleep
thing.
And oxygen. You breathe, you sleep. That's that's basic needs. Yeah.
So we do really need to come right back to the very basics about what we're eating, the environment in which we are sleeping, which our children are sleeping, and how we're sleeping.
Okay, so I mean, now you're again, you've got parents thinking, okay, I got it. Sleep is super important, and we really need to focus on that, especially when it comes to our children. What would be strategies aside from working with somebody like yourself? What would be strategies to help kids establish healthy sleep habits?
So I think we have to model the importance of sleep. That's the first thing.
That's true. Yeah.
We also need to be very aware that language is really powerful. And, we wouldn't say that, such a body is so terrible at maths, or they're really bad at football, but we say, they're a terrible sleeper.
Yes.
We have to stop.
I think in every group of parents that I have a conversation with, so-and-so, my son or my daughter was just not a good sleeper right from the get-go. No. And you think to yourself, okay, I mean, that seems very much acceptable. Yeah. But that may not be the case.
Not at all. We all have the capacity to sleep, but we also need to learn it. If we didn't need to learn sleep, then why is 1/3 of the world not sleeping? So we have to, we've really got to come back, as we say, to the basics, and we have to teach our children, because sleep in its purest form is a learnt behaviour. Sleep's not intuitive. Yes, of course, we will sleep at some point, but it's not just about the quantity, it's also about the quality. So we need to teach our children, just like we teach our children how to sit up and we teach our children how to crawl, how to walk. We support them in their learning. We need to do the same with sleep.
And so let's say, for example, you've got a parent, and they're trying to start off on sort of a good foot. What would be the best time to start, implementing good sleep habits?
Yeah. So at the very beginning, when our children are first born, when our babies are first born, the most important thing is connection. It is about really discovering our babies and finding what their temperament, what their personality, and really connecting with our babies. Now, in those first 12 weeks, they haven't got this beautiful, very powerful hormone called melatonin. That is not there yet until our babies are 12 weeks. But from 12 weeks, and even actually around 10 weeks, we can start developing a routine. So we've got everything in place, so that when this melatonin comes in around 12 weeks, and then they have the ability to recognize day and night, now they have the routine and we can start sleep shaping. So initially it's sleep shaping. It's not sleep coaching, but it is sleep shaping.
And kind of setting up the foundations of a proper, I think it's not just sleep. It's to have I know some people don't like the word routine when it comes to these things, but given how important sleep is, I find everyone, the predictable routine of bedtime or nap time or whatever it is that's going to lead to sleep. Yeah. I find that whole ritual is very important. It can't be kind of disregarded. You can't just be like, it's sleep time, switch off.
No. It's hugely important, because our children don't like surprises. And if we can maintain that predictable momentum, that's going to help our children feel very safe and secure. Absolutely. It's like, for example, when our children are first born, they access what we call the reptilian brain. Now, from birth to the age of 2, that's their main access. And what that means is that when they are accessing the reptilian brain, it's either safe or danger. There is nothing in between for our children. And the more predictability that we can present to our children, the safer they are going to feel. Now, like you say, it's not a rigidity. There has to be that flexibility, because change is ever constant in our lives. And now for the children, the change in their lives is more constant than ever before. Absolutely. So we want to help our children be adaptable, because that's going to help them in life. And so yes, to be flexible and responsive, but a routine is really important because then they know where they are.
Absolutely. And, even if you think about it as an adult, I mean, for us to go to for our bedtime, we sort of finish off what we were doing at that moment. We go in, we brush our teeth, we might have a sip of water, we get comfortable. That's all part of our routine.
It is.
It's not like there's nothing worse than falling asleep on the couch and then waking up at 3 o'clock in the morning and you haven't done your routine. It's a bit unsettling. So I can imagine for a child, it's probably magnified that feeling of, well, I haven't done my bedtime and I don't know where I am. And all of a sudden I woke up here and it's all upside down.
Last year we were having some renovations done on the apartment and at home. And I woke up in the middle of the night and I don't have my phone by my bed. So I came out to the clock where I know normally is, that has been there for the last 8 years. Yeah. Because of the renovations, it wasn't there. Oh. And it suddenly occurred to me, oh my goodness, this is how our children feel. Yeah. Our children who can't tell the time when they wake up and they have no idea what. It really occurred to me. And I think we underestimate how important.
Yeah, it is important. It's true. It's true, because your natural instinct is to check the time. You kind of get your bearings right. So they don't have bearings and you are potentially their bearings. So they come in and to wake you up. Yeah. And then you tell them, no, not yet. So it's
so that point of reference is really important. It's finding that point of reference, which is your bedtime routine. And so last year when I was speaking in America at a sleep conference, which was really, really fascinating, there was a lot of incredible research that was being presented. And this research that was being presented was looking at a group of teenagers. And across all socioeconomic groups, what they discovered was the most important factor with all ages of the teenagers and the socioeconomic groups. The most important factor was routine. Even 15, 16, 18, routine.
Yeah. So I get that. I think we naturally, as human beings, are creatures of habit. And I find routine in a world of constant chaos and lots of moving parts, to have you feel comfortable and you find safety. I guess exactly like you said, you find safety in the routine. You know what to expect. Yeah. You know what's coming next. Yeah. And especially, for a child or even a teenager, their world is changing every single day. Yeah. Everything is new, potentially. But once they get home and it's the end of the day, they know that this is what mommy or daddy do, and then I go to bed. Yeah. So it does give that type of level of grounding, I find. Yeah. At least for me and for my kids. Yeah.
But even, we talk about that level of safetiness. There's some wonderful research that's showing that on the first night of our holiday,
I never sleep good. My goodness.
And you shouldn't. Well, what the research is saying, that you lose up to 40% of restorative sleep on that first night.
100%.
And do you know why?
No. Is it foreign?
It's because the brain perceives the new place as danger. So the brain stays in that light sleep in anticipation of a saber-toothed tiger. So it's really back to evolution, and it's trying to keep us safe. Now, interestingly, this research was uncovered with the neuroscientists who were establishing sleep for the Olympian British cycle team. That's when that was discovered. So it's very, very interesting.
That is very
interesting. But 40% of our sleep is lost, restorative sleep on that first night of being away.
I know the first night of the vacation, I'm exhausted the next day. Yep. I don't sleep well. I'm a bit anxious and nervous. I don't know what it is. I can't seem to switch off like I would in my own home. Yeah. Second night, third night, I'm fine. Yeah. But you're absolutely right.
It's the brain perceives the environment as danger, and then it won't let us sleep.
That's so interesting. I'm going to keep that in mind for summer holidays. Yeah. Not to panic. Just, this is normal. This is my brain protecting me.
Completely.
So now this is a big one. And I feel like this is not plagued, but I feel this has become a part of our lives and we can't avoid it. Screens.
Yeah.
even by the look of your face, it's showing a lot of concern. So screen time and sleep. Screen time and sleep, which then has an impact on mental health.
Huge impact. Now, I think we've got to be really mindful that...
And I think just to add to that question,
yeah,
to what extent is the damage or the impact does screen time before bedtime have on sleep and, you know, sort of connected to mental health?
Yeah. So I think we really need to unpack that question. And I think the first thing is to recognize we are living in the world of a digital world and we can't avoid it. There's no going back. It's almost like the genie's come out of the lamp. And it is. We also want to work with the screen, particularly with our children, because it's everywhere. You know, I was very fortunate in that I had approximately 40 years before I had the phone, the mobile phone. You know, I grew up without the internet, without the mobile phone. Whereas now our children, it's everywhere, from it being a monitor in their bedtime, in their bedroom rather, from it being part of their learning within the school curriculum, which I don't believe it should be, particularly in the early years. I don't believe there is a place for the iPad and screens within early. I really don't believe that. And I do believe that parents should be asking the questions why. And it's only when parents ask the question why that you will be able to see some kind of impact. Yeah. So that's the first thing. But we need to recognize screens are here for good, and they can be really helpful. And don't see it as the big bad
thing with screens. No, we can't. No, work with it positively as opposed to just always looking at it as if it's going to cause harm.
But we can't deny the research that is being presented now. At the very beginning with our children, not only is the screen bad for their sleep, but it's also really bad for, really harmful for their brain development and their eyesight. And we know that up until so recently, for example, statistics were changed and advice was changed that up until COVID, the recommendations were that children under the age of 2 should not be exposed to screen time. Now, it wasn't because they had discovered that the screen wasn't harmful to their eyesight, but during COVID, there were statistics that children's mental health was being impacted, and the family was, and the coping mechanisms with the parents, just let them have some screen time and parents could have some downtime. And it was causing a lot of stress, so therefore the rules were changed. So, but changed not for the reason that was for the benefit of the children, for their brain development. So it was a different reason. So that we need to be mindful of. So again, the reason why is that children's eyesight is very sensitive to the light. Now with the screens, it gives off a blue light. The blue light is perceived by the brain as 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So if a child is watching the screen, depending on their age, their perception of the intensity of that blue light is going to impact the sleep, very much impact the sleep. So it's going to really disrupt the melatonin, disrupt it hugely. So if you are going to expose a child, or if you are going to let your children watch the screen, we have to be looking at what the recommendations are in terms of how much screen per minute, per hour. And the research is very clear around how much children should be watching depending on their age. So if you're looking at a 5-year-old, for example, most recommendations will say a maximum of 1.5 hours, but not 1.5 hours totally. It's in small
doses.
Yeah. Because when the child watches a screen, their brain, their sympathetic nervous system is turned on. So their brain has gone to the fight, fright, and flight. So if you can imagine your children is watching that an hour before bedtime, so the brain is not able to dial down and in preparation for sleep. So not only is the brain not able to dial down, but also it's disrupting that very powerful hormone, the melatonin, which is enabling our children to sleep.
I have to ask, is it only screens like tablets, or is it also TV? Because I feel like there should be a distinction.
And there is a distinction. So, for example, there is a distinction in the intensity.
Okay.
So with the screen, the TV, the blue light is less than the blue light
That's
on
not
a
to say
tablet.
stick them in front of the TV,
No.
but maybe just weigh up what's available.
So the blue light is less with the TV than it is on the iPad, for example, on a tablet. And then the tablet is less than it would be on a mobile phone, which is of a much greater intensity.
The mobile phone?
The mobile phone, much greater than your tablet or your
Wow, I had no
TV.
idea.
Yeah, much greater intensity.
And that obviously also has an impact on adults. I
Yes.
mean, that's why you've got all these glasses now for blue light and all of that. So it does have an impact.
It does have an impact. And, it's not just about the light.
Yeah.
It's also about the content. So we have to be aware if the children are watching something which is fast and, fast moving and it's all busy and sound, then that's actually going to dial the brain up even further and have an even greater negative impact on our children's sleep.
I feel like sleep and screens and just screen time for kids is so heavily sort of talked about, but it's at a point where you feel you don't know what. I feel parents sometimes get a bit confused and lost, and I think just to do screen time in moderation and to really limit it maybe before a bedtime routine. I think
So
would that be a suitable recommendation?
So as parents, we're feeders, and we become very anxious when we see that our children aren't eating. And many parents now will use the screen to encourage their child to eat. Now, this is one of the worst uses of screen time. There are so many studies that are linking screen time with unemotional eating, which in the future, fast forward, 10, 20 years, we know that the children are going to be unemotional eaters and much more likely to suffer with things like anorexia nervosa, obesity and bulimia. And the main reason for that is because these two really powerful hormones, these metabolic hormones, which are called ghrelin and leptin, these two hormones are telling us when we are full and when we are hungry. Now, if our children are watching the screen, and this is from a very young age, if they're watching the screen, then they are far less aware of these two hormones, and then they grow as adults where they're not connected to these two hormones at all, and they don't receive the cues to the brain and the body. I'm full, and that's why weight is associated with poor sleep.
Absolutely.
And it's the same with our children, though. We need our children from the very beginning to be aware of these two very important hormones. And there's a whole it's not just these two. Yeah.
So now let's talk a little bit about coping mechanisms for children who have trouble falling asleep and staying asleep. Are there coping mechanisms that they...
There are coping mechanisms. Now, we say a lot of the time that age is important, but actually thinking about the study that was there, all these studies presented in America last year, routine for the teenagers, routine for our babies, routine for our toddlers. Routine is a really important coping mechanism. Now, we need to look at the routine and we need to be aware that we can make this collaborative. With our toddlers, for example, they need to be part of it. They need to be part of that routine. And so ask them, is there something that you would like? I remember a couple of years ago, I was working with this little boy and, we asked this little boy, what would he like to be part of this routine? And he came out with this, I would really like my flashcards.
Oh, lovely.
And both his parents and myself, we looked at one another. Okay.
Yeah.
Now, I knew that these flashcards could go on for hours. So again, we're working with our children. So we have to put a time limit on it. Now, you would agree again. So we're handing some autonomy and some ownership over to our children. And you might say, okay, of course you can. During the school week, it might be that we have 10 minutes of your flashcards. And then maybe at the weekend, you can have 15 minutes. Now, it's really important that you do set that timer and, you know, try and avoid using the phone. There's lots of really wonderful, really, you know, cool alarm clocks out there that we can use with our children, much healthier. So use that, and then that's really right from the very beginning, we are getting them to a place that normalizing the clock as opposed to normalizing the phone.
That's actually a really good idea.
So things like that, so get them to be part of the routine. So that's a really important mechanism, managing and coping mechanism for our children. We can still, from a very young age, you can look at breathing, you can look at meditation, you can look at mindfulness tools for our children. All of these factors are really important. Another coping mechanism, look at their exercise. Are they having enough exercise? But be mindful that the exercise isn't happening too close to bedtime. Now, the reason why having exercise too close to bedtime is counterproductive to their sleep is because if we exercise too close, we are raising our core body temperature. And then that is instrumental in telling our biological clock what time it is, because our core body temperature typically rises in the morning
and sort of cools off in the evening.
So we do have to be mindful about the exercise. But again, you know, look at our chronotype. Our chronotype is really important. I had an interesting incident. My chronotype, without question, I am an owl. And at the weekend, I got up early with a very good friend of mine, and we went for a walk at 7 o'clock on the beach. It nearly killed me waking up because my chronotype...
See, I would have loved that. I am definitely a morning person.
Now, what was interesting was when we went the week before at 5 in the evening...
You loved it. See, I would have hated that.
No, but you know something? I achieved, and it was just I was doing it with my friends, but I achieved 13,600 steps.
Wow.
Whereas the 7 o'clock morning, I was far less efficient. We need to pay attention to our bodies.
What works for
you? We need to listen to our
Yep.
bodies. I know my chronotype is that of an owl. So for me, my exercise is definitely better later. Not that I ever do exercise.
No, but you're so right. You're so right. I mean, if even for me, I think we were talking about that just before we recorded. So you being an owl, me being a lark. I've always been that way, even when it comes to exercise.
For our children too.
Yeah, from little kids. I remember even on family vacations, my sister and my dad would always sleep in, and me and my mom would always be the first to be up and about.
Yeah.
And it was just so funny because I remember that as a child, me and my mom must have gotten up early and we had walked on the beach and it was wonderful. When we got back, they were still sleeping.
Yeah.
We must have been a bit older.
Yeah.
But to this day, I think both my kids are larks like me. My husband is semi. I don't know. He's in between. He'll get up. He won't sleep in too often, but he's always kind of the last of us to get up. And we generally do lots of things in the morning. And by the afternoon, it's that low point for me. So I can't, even my productive hours are between 6 and midday.
And again, you know, if you're looking at the biology of sleep, if we look at our circadian rhythm, the circadian rhythm is what initiates us waking and initiates us sleeping. So that's your circadian rhythm. But it's so fascinating to see when we have our best time for solving problems. And that would be in the morning.
In the morning.
That would be in the morning. When would be our best time for being creative? So that's late afternoon. And that's where you're looking at the naps, because they do facilitate sleep. And again, with our children, with the naps, napping is absolutely critical. Yes, very much depending on their age. But like there was a wonderful study that was carried, and there's a number of them now, but we were able to see that our children were, as babies, they were presented with this particular language, this made-up language. And the children who slept, they were able to retrieve and recognize this made-up language, unlike the children who didn't nap. So that's where we have this memory consolidation, and that's where our learning takes place. So it is important.
It really is. And to watch your kids, what did you call it? Is it chronotype.
Yeah, your chronotype.
To watch them, to watch them and really kind of, so I know what type of activities to do in that day because I know what's going to be.
Because that's their biology.
Absolutely.
We can't fight against it. Now, there's an element of fighting against it because we, as society, we are so dark deprived. You know, we are just bombarded everywhere with light.
I do like light, though. I love daytime.
But the right kind of light, natural light.
Natural light, yeah.
But, you know, the light from a screen.
Yeah.
That is giving us unnatural light. So that is really distorting the timing within our brain. And that's why, you know, I will advise parents and adults not to wear your sunglasses as soon as you go out in the morning. Because
let the light just go into your eyes.
To confirm with the brain that it's 8 a.m., not 8 p.m. Yeah. That's what it's doing. It's keeping our biological clock on time.
It's fascinating. It's really fascinating.
Yeah.
And everything is connected. And we always go back down to making sure healthy habits when it comes to sleep.
Yeah, it is. And it's... and I think we're trying to move away from this idea about sleep hygiene. It's about sleep health. Yeah. Hygiene almost seems too clinical. Yeah, clinical. But sleep health, much more positive.
Absolutely. And I feel like that it's one of those things that it's going to carry on for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
So to be able to sleep well as a child, you're going to sleep well essentially as an adult.
Yeah.
So let's get them sleeping. How can parents tell if their child does have sleep problems that are related to mental health concerns?
So again, mood. Yeah. Then mood is a really significant factor. If you can see that your children are, you know, consistently out of sorts, if you can see that you're having to wake them up in the morning, they're just so tired, you can't get them out of bed. And again, age is a factor. If they're a teenager, then that is relevant because there is a shift in their biological clock. So their melatonin comes in considerably later. But if we're talking about young children, looking about what their behavior is telling us, that's what they're communicating. If they have a low mood, you know, if their performance at school is being hampered, you know, I speak to a range of teachers and they can see that daytime sleepiness in the classroom, you know, if they're going to school on the bus and they are sleeping on the bus, our children shouldn't be sleeping on the bus. They shouldn't be falling asleep in the classroom.
Or in the classroom or even in the car.
No, they shouldn't. So there are a number of elements that will create this picture that is showing us that our children are not sleeping well and that they're tired.
Now, you touched on it sort of in the classroom and schools. I mean, how can schools support kids' mental health and sleep needs? I think that's a big one.
It is a huge one, but things are really happening. You know, one of the things that can help, and this has been really instigated by one of the most wonderful neuroscientists, sleep researchers called Dr. Mary Cascadon. Now, Dr. Mary Cascadon was the first person who was able to identify that the needs of teenagers, their sleep needs are very different from children and adults. And so she's been a huge advocate in shifting the time, the start time of schools. Now, we're really fortunate because finally the research has been very evident for a number of years, and finally we're beginning to look at that. And there's a number of schools here in Dubai that have altered their school timings to support our children and help our children become more rested. And we really saw that during Ramadan, for example.
Absolutely.
You know, the children were starting later, and honestly, the number of parents that were saying they were loving spending time with the children in the morning, nothing was rushed.
I feel that was the point. I mean, despite the fact your kids could potentially wake up at 6, but to be out the door by 7, 10 past, it is madness in the morning for parents, for kids. It takes away from those morning moments when having breakfast together and that type of thing. And definitely in with the Ramadan hours, it was wonderful.
And often, you know, they will say, about the logistics. That's why they don't want to make the school times later, because for the teenagers, because what a lot of the parents have got children in the younger school. Actually, the research is showing us that you can change it for the younger children without impacting their learning. The research is really clear. So that's not relevant. So what schools can do, yes, is look at their school timings. Yeah. And the other thing is educate. We need to go in from a very young age. We need to make it part of the school curriculum about from 3 to 5 years, looking at sleep and how important it is. We say that we only grow in the dark. That is really creating interest with our children. We can use the growing of plants where they can see about the growth.
You mean to actually include it in the curriculum to talk to kids?
Yes.
Oh, that's brilliant. I think lots of parents would agree.
It's really important, really important. So make it part, years ago we talked about education, sexual health, for example. And now that is really evident. We're looking at nutrition and how important nutrition is for our children. So now we need to bring in sleep. So this is almost like the Cinderella has been left out. We need to bring that in. And that's going to help. So the school can, that's somewhere.
Sort of place emphasis on that.
Yeah. And like some of the schools are really bringing in more about wellness. So they're looking at sleep being an important part in relation to exams, recognizing that exams is going to cause anxiety. Exams is going to interrupt our children's sleep.
Absolutely.
So how are we going to work with our children? So having that open dialogue, our children, sleeping, and helping the parents recognize that, and having that safe place that the parents can go and say they are concerned, or how can we work through together?
Because it's true. I mean, even I remember being in high school and sort of in university, and this whole concept of you've got to cram for an exam, and you're pulling these all-nighters and expected to really use your full focus on an exam and produce a certain level of academic marks and things like that. It becomes extremely difficult if that person hasn't slept. And I remember exam weeks or months or whatever it was being very difficult, and I was exhausted. But again, the focus wasn't on sleep at all. The conversation didn't even go near sleep.
And that's what's really positive now.
Absolutely,
The conversation is, but we need to take it further, because we're still just talking about it. We are still not being proactive enough. If we look at Harvard, for example, Harvard have a course on sleep for their new students, and really explaining the theory and the practical. That we need to bring that everywhere, but it's too late when you get to university. It's too late. We need to start right from the very beginning.
FS1 nursery.
Yeah, we really do. Yeah.
My goodness. And so obviously, I feel like we touched on so many things, but now, what advice would you have for parents who are concerned about their child's mental health as well as their sleep habits?
Yeah. So, again, looking at the behavior of our children and knowing what could suggest that there is a mental health issue. It's very hard actually to identify, but we didn't even really touch on it, but we didn't talk about it. Night terrors. Night terrors typically happen in non-REM sleep. So usually in the first half of the night. Now, as parents, it's really, really very difficult for our parents to watch. But for the child, they have no recall or no memory. And in fact, it doesn't disrupt their sleep. But it doesn't.
I thought they actually wake up.
No. Nightmares, yes. Yeah. But night terrors, they don't. But generally, one of the triggers for a night terror is overtiredness. So again, it's looking as to what the behaviors are telling us. So if we are concerned about our children being overtired and seeing elements of anxiety, really look back to try and gather information. Go and speak to your healthcare provider. Go and speak with your doctor, saying that you have a concern. Look at our children's diet. The diet is really important when it comes to our children's mental health as well. These are all factors that we need to look at.
So just generally, just be observant sort of everything does tie in. So whether it's diet, sleep, general overall mood, I think that shouldn't be dismissed as just being cranky. I mean, if they're cranky all day, that doesn't.
And if it's consistent, if I think we again have seemed to have shifted away from parenting being intuitive. We need to really listen to what our intuition is telling us. And as parents, we know when our children are not happy. And it's asking that question, why? And very often we forget to look at their sleep. And we forget to see, are they having enough sleep? Absolutely. That's a really significant factor here.
Absolutely. And I think that's like the best thing to end this, because it is fundamental and it needs to be done, and it should be done. It should be prioritized, to be honest, like you said, over everything else. It's sleep and oxygen.
It's sleep and oxygen, and it's to recognize that sleep is not a luxury.
No.
Sleep is a fundamental aspect of our well-being.
Speaking about sleep, now I feel like I'm just going to be determined to have the best night's sleep of my life today.
Good.
Julie, thank you.
You're most welcome. I've loved it always, I never tire of talking about sleep.
I mean, I don't get tired of hearing you talk about sleep. Thank you so much.
No, you're most welcome.
I mean, I find, again, from the sleep episode, from what we did right at the beginning of the podcast, honestly, it was widely, sort of downloaded, and people crave information on it. And I think we were talking a little bit before we started this. There is a flood of information that parents have, honestly no idea what to do with, and it is conflicting. And to be able to talk about this in a non-judgmental, but also it's not intimidating. You kind of bring it down to basics, saying, we've forgotten to just have a look at our kids, and just that intuition. That essentially can sort of put things in order.
And I think because parents are under so much pressure now, more than ever before. They've got to have the right diet, they've got to have the right sleep, they've got to achieve these goals. We actually just need to stop
and watch.
But also recognize that if they're not sleeping, then let's have a weekend where we really focus and we just take the anxiety out of it. And it's just about being. It's really important. Don't overthink sleep, because again, we are now so anxious looking, oh my goodness, my child didn't get enough sleep. And that means it's going to impact their brain development. And because there is a lot of frightening information out there, but we just have to think, how can we be proactive? And we can look at their diets, look at their exercise, look at their environment. We didn't really talk about their sleep environment. Their sleep environment is also really important. So,
we have to get the environment back on. But no, I love that, because it's true. Parents are constantly bombarded with, if you don't do this, this is going to be the outcome. If you don't do that, and it's this sort of fear factor. But I love the fact that it's kind of, don't make it a big deal, but prioritize it, because it's very important. So I think that's the best. That's the best.
And tomorrow is another day.
Absolutely.
If we didn't sleep well tonight,
try again tomorrow.
We'll try again tomorrow.
There is a lot of anxiety when it comes to kids' sleep with parents. Me being definitely one of them when we were together with the two boys. And, you kind of, now in hindsight, looking back at it, I think, why was I so stressed out? But in it, when you're that thick into,
and also you're sleep deprived,
so, and you can't think straight.
Your emotional regulation, it's completely, your emotional regulation, your cognitive function, all of these are compromised. So sleep is fundamental, but it's work in progress. And we've also got to be very aware that our relationship with sleep, it really changes throughout our lifetime. Absolutely. It doesn't stand still. Whether you're a baby, whether you're a toddler, whether you're a child, a teenager, it doesn't stand still. It's evolving. And just to look at it in that respect.
Julie, thank you.
You're welcome.
Of course, everybody. Like the previous one, all of your details will be linked.
Yes.
With the episode all in the show notes, and so that very tired parents, whether they're tired or concerned, can reach out to you.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you so much.
And thank you for providing this platform, because it really does take a village.
It really does. And I think I said it in the previous episode with you and I, but you were a firm pillar of my village. So I'm just so grateful that you came back and to talk to me.
No, you're more than welcome.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to They Say It Takes a Village. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. I look forward to bringing you another one next week. Don't forget, please subscribe, rate, and review so I can reach and help even more parents. And if you've got a topic that you'd like me to cover, please head over to my Instagram page, ittakesavillage.me, and drop me a line.